watched Democrats try to sell new taxes to people in all sorts of ways. But I do have to say, I think this is a first, suggesting that a business tax will actually be good for businesses. This segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that. As so many Democrat-run cities are, Seattle is facing a budget crisis. It is, of course, a crisis of their own making. They got all this money during the pandemic, spent it on nonsense things that everybody warned them, don't spend one-time COVID funds on something you're going to need to fund in a reoccurring basis. They did it anyway. It's why Washington State, Oregon, California, all the cities they're in are having a budget nightmare. But they don't blame themselves. You can't blame yourself, of course. So you've got to blame who? Donald Trump. So they're blaming Donald Trump for Seattle's economic challenges. And Mayor Bruce Harrell, along with all, it seems, members of the city council, think one of the ways out of this is a narrowly tailored increase in the business and occupation tax. So Mayor Harrell did a proposal last month to the city council to explain what the tax is going to be and then why we need it in the first place. So one of his slides, Seattle faces increasing economic challenges, including an increased overall cost of living, increasing business and property taxes. And then he said, state and federal uncertainty. We have hundreds of millions of dollars in federal grants that are imperiled. That's a great word. They're imperiled by the current administration. Currently, the congressional One Big Beautiful Bill legislation will have direct impacts on Medicaid, SNAP benefits, and more that will directly affect our community. So, Seattle's in a bad economic situation, not because of everything we've done over the last 15 years, but because of things Donald Trump might do. It just makes no sense when you really think about it. Chicken before the egg, it makes no sense. But so what would a narrowly focused increase in the B&O tax look like? And what would it be for? What would it be spent on? So they said the proposed revenue will support the threshold lift and deduction for small businesses. We'll get to more on that in a moment. And then it would support the city's general fund investments in food access, gender-based violence. Ah, yes, this is what we need to increase taxes for. Gender-based violence, not, violence as a whole. Not, let's treat every victim of violence the same. Super strange. Small business supports, emergency shelter, homelessness prevention, as if we haven't spent and don't have billions of dollars directed to homelessness. Nope, they need more taxes to deal with that. Support for workers' rights and protections. Then it says up to $30 million in proceeds from the tax would be used to mitigate the impact of federal funding reductions in housing stability, food insecurity, financial stability for affordable housing providers, and emergency shelter and homelessness. So here's the change, and here's how they are spinning this as a good thing for businesses. Oh yes, an increased B&O tax. Good thing for businesses. So what this will do is it will allow them to increase the exemption for businesses that are covered by the B&O tax. So it says step one, it'll raise B&O tax exemption threshold from $100,000 to $2 million, exempting 76% of current B&O taxpayers. So basically, if you bring in less than $2 million a year as a business, then it's going to create an exemption for you. So it's those businesses that bring in over $2 million a year that are now not only going to have to bear the brunt of the B&O, but potentially all the B&O taxes and then an increased B&O tax. So it would raise B&O tax rates for gross revenue over $2 million to raise $90 million for critical human services and programs. So if you're a business in the city of Seattle and you make under $2 million in gross revenue a year, you could look at this and say, well, that's a great thing for me. And if you are a business that makes over $2 million in gross revenue a year, you're looking at this and probably saying, what TF? Told my husband, no F words on the show this week. WTF is wrong with the city of Seattle. So this was passed unanimously by the Seattle City Council to send to voters in November. So voters in Seattle are going to have to make a decision on this. Voters in Seattle have never met a tax that they did not like. Voters in Seattle will absolutely pass this because what is it going to be spun as? Tax on big business. Oh, the rich pay their fair share once again in the city of Seattle. We, of course, know that the consequences of doing this are much more nuanced than that. But I want to play a little bit from Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell's press conference where he signed this new, I can't really call it legislation, but this proposal to be sent to voters in November. So he keeps beating this drum as, and this is how they're going to sell it, this business tax actually helps businesses.
This proposal, this B&O tax relief, has been consistently highlighted in so many discussions as one of the most effective ways to support our small and medium-sized businesses. So by reducing taxes for 90% of small and medium-sized businesses, we are helping entrepreneurs pursue their dream.
Okay, I get how that sounds legitimate. I am a small business. If you told me what's one of the ways that you could help my business, I would say get rid of my B&O tax. Get rid of the big fat check I have to write every month for running a little podcast. And I am sure that there are, every business would be like, cut my B&O. That would be helpful. But there's a couple other things here that are really important to understand when, again, we discuss how dishonest they are in selling new taxes. The first one is the state just passed $9.5 billion in new taxes, most of those on businesses. A dramatic increase in the B&O tax. So this isn't going to be some windfall for Seattle businesses. They just got hit hard by the state. So they get a little bit here, but they got a whole lot coming from the state. So let's not act like we've done any favors on the whole for businesses as it pertains to the B&O tax in the state of Washington this year. We have not, even if this thing passes. They're still screwed. Not to mention all the crime issues they have to deal with and all of that. That's why there's so many empty storefronts. The other issue is this, and it's something I talk about all the time as I discuss how bad of an idea it is to target big corporations out for taxation. It was a bad idea when they passed the tax on high-paying jobs, which was before that the head tax. What happened when they did that? When they singled out specific corporations for taxation. Amazon took 10,000 jobs, more than that now, and they moved them across the lake to Bellevue. What happens when you take 10,000 jobs out of that downtown area and you ship them to Bellevue? It hurts the small businesses. It hurts the restaurants. It hurts the coffee shops. It hurts the doggy daycares. It hurts the laundromats. It hurts the bars. It hurts the bike shops. All of that whole ecosystem of businesses in the downtown area relies on corporations like Amazon to thrive. That's just the truth. Amazon has already shown that if you target them unfairly for taxation, if you single them out as some sort of form of punishment for success, that they are not afraid to take their jobs out of the city. Why do you think they're investing so much money in Bellevue and elsewhere in the country, frankly? They're building giant buildings and skyscrapers to house more employees in Bellevue because they're not going to continue to invest in Seattle. So you go downtown, there is empty storefront after empty storefront after empty storefront. And that's what happens when you punish success and major corporations. If there's all of a sudden 20,000 less employees in the downtown core at a time when a lot of downtown companies and office buildings didn't mandate return to work, so the foot traffic downtown is not back to pre-pandemic levels, not by any stretch of the imagination. So if Amazon looks at this and says, well, screw you guys, 20,000 more jobs to Bellevue, you don't think that these small businesses and these mid-sized businesses, restaurants, you don't think there's restaurants that gross over $2 million a year? Of course there are. You don't think that they would say to the city, man, we're going to go out of business now. I would rather be paying the B&O tax. I would rather be paying the B&O tax that you guys gave me a break on than to watch my business close down because we don't have any Amazon employees anymore. So and I think that the city knows this. I would hope someone like Bruce Harrell, who's been in government for this long and has, I hope, people in the business sector in his ear, I hope they're telling him what a dumb, short-sighted decision this is and how the real issue at the core of this is their out-of-control spending. Cutting B&O taxes for small to mid-sized businesses, but punishing larger corporations with higher B&O taxes is going to hurt businesses across the board. So I don't know if he knows this, but he just chooses to lie to people and to manipulate because he's trying to win a mayoral election. Speaking of, he fit that in at this official press conference as well.
This balanced approach, relief for small businesses and raising new progressive revenue, underscores our city's commitment to both economic growth and community resilience. And so by signing this legislation, it places this proposal on the ballot for November 2025. If I'm not mistaken, there's a few other issues on that ballot. As I recall, thought I was going to get a better laugh than that.
Oh, yes, nothing like the mayor illegally politicking about his own campaign for mayor while doing an official city press conference. Pretty sure you can't do that. I would hope there's going to be some PDC violations, even if it was a joke. Here is, I think, the worst part of it all. It's what I always say. Politicians will do what politicians will do. They'll lie, they'll twist the truth, they'll gaslight to get what they need, they'll find any tax for any reason and all of that. What is supposed to be standing in the breach between politicians and the people impacted by their policies? Who is it supposed to be? Well, it's supposed to be the media, right? The media is supposed to be in that room asking questions about the things that I just pointed out. Well, hey, Mr. Mayor, is this really going to be a net benefit for businesses considering the massive state taxes that Governor Ferguson just passed? Hey, Mr. Mayor, if Amazon is targeted out again for taxation, won't they do what they did when you passed the tax on high-paying jobs and moved 10,000 jobs over to Bellevue? And then what will that mean for small businesses? So let's check in and see if the dogged journalists in the room for this important press conference had any questions like that to ask.
If there's any questions, we'll entertain a few, but we want to sign some legislations and really shake some hands. And so if there are any questions, I don't want to deprive you of the opportunity to ask any questions. Hearing none, I'm going to count us down to 3, 2, 1, Seattle. Okay, let's sign some legislation.
Not one question. Not one question. And you wonder why we push so hard for new media, for independent media like our show and others like Jonathan Cho to have a seat at the table, to be allowed into press conferences, to be given press passes? It's because the legacy media is depleted. They're depleted and they're cowards. They're depleted and they don't care enough to ask a question of the mayor while they have him in front of them about something as serious as new taxes on businesses at a time when businesses are struggling and just got hit with billions of dollars in new taxes from the state. Not a single question. It's the media's failure that has got our state into this situation, not the failure of politicians. That segment was brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for opportunity to be alerted to opportunities to do just that. And join them next week for their Northwest Sanity Forum. There's still some tickets available, so you can check that out at their website.